Honestly, guys, my arms were stuck for months. No matter what I did, added more volume, added more weight, my arms never seemed to grow. And then I realized it's not just about adding more weight and adding more volume. I did 7 to 8 things differently to help me grow my arms 1 inch in 60 days. And in today's video, I'm gonna share exactly what I did. Let's jump into it. All right, guys, the very first thing that I did was I did them first on my upper body days. Now, this goes against conventional wisdom, right? Because you've been taught, do your compound movements first, do your isolation exercises at the end. Now, that's all well and good. But if you're trying to grow a specific muscle group, and in this case, we're talking biceps, triceps, you have to do them first in your workouts if you want to optimize your results. Reason being, if you do all your compound movements first and then your isolation exercises at the end, you've accumulated a shitload of fatigue, and by the time you get to your arms, you don't have much left in the tank. So I did my upper body one day, I would start with my biceps, triceps. I would do my push one day, I would start with triceps and then get to chest and shoulders. And then on my pull day, I would start with biceps and then do my back after that. Do this, guys, and it'll be an absolute game changer for you. The second thing I did was I added strategic volume. Now, I use the word strategic on purpose because it's not just about adding endless volume, guys. And I'm just going to share exactly what I did, and you can literally plug and play this. So on my upper body days, I would do about 3 working sets of biceps, that's it, and 3 working sets of triceps. On my pull day, I would do about probably 5 working sets of biceps, and on my push day, I would do about 5 working sets of triceps. So we're at 8 sets each, and that's what I typically did for, many months. But then when I try to increase my arms, I'm like, okay, let's add a few more working sets to my biceps and triceps. So on this Saturday, I would add probably about 4 working sets, give or take, for biceps and triceps. So basically I bumped up my set from 8 to 12 per muscle group. Now you might be thinking that's still not a big number, because it's really not, right? And most guys think like 15, 16, 18, 20 sets is the answer. I'm doing 12 working sets, and this will lead me to the next point, which is the most important part in terms of how to scale up intensity. The third thing I did, and this is kind of the last one of the low-hanging fruits, is I added more intensity. Now, when I mean intensity, I'm not even talking about adding more weight, because we're going to talk about that later on. But I'm just talking pushing closer to failure. And before I used to just kind of do my motions in terms of my arm exercises, like do some bicep curls, do some triceps, and really not thinking about how hard I'm pushing. And I think a lot of guys have that problem also. But then I realized, like, okay, let's actually bump up the intensity and let's push closer to failure on my sets. So especially on my upper body days, when I'm doing only 3 sets of biceps, triceps, I would basically either take it to failure or at the very least, like 1 rep shy of failure. If you guys even keep the weight the same, but push closer to failure, you're gonna see an absolute game-changing result for your arms. The fourth thing I did was I lowered my volume for other muscle groups. Now, this is very important because if you are adding more volume and intensity, in which we just talked about the previous 2 points, you have to lower your volume for other muscle groups, because if you don't, you're just not going to be able to recover from those workouts. So for me, I did obviously a little more arms because I had about 12 working sets per week compared to 8. And I had to make that difference up because I had to recover from my workouts. So what I did was I dropped my leg volume by just a little bit, and I even dropped my chest and back volume by a couple sets per workout. That way I can actually recover from my arm workouts, because if you're doing arms like 3 to 4 times per week, which I was basically doing, you have to recover well, guys. And if you're just destroying yourself on legs and destroying yourself with chest and back, you're not going to recover, and you're not going to see the benefits of adding more volume and intensity, and like I said, the previous 2 points in which I talked about. The fifth thing I did was I mastered the 10 to 15 rep range. Now for myself, like I have to lift a little bit lighter because I do have a heart condition and I can't strain my heart too much. But going back to the point with biceps here and triceps, I feel like mastering the 10 to 15 rep range is a game changer for growing your arms that way. Reason being, if we go too heavy, and let me give you an example of the bicep curl. Let's say I'm doing like a bicep curl, but I'm trying to do like 45, 50 pounds, plus. What's going to happen is your elbows are going to drift up. And like what happens when your elbow drifts up, what does this movement kind of look like, guys? It's more like a front delt, right? So when you're lifting heavy with arms, typically speaking, you're going to involve muscles that assist the muscle that we're trying to work, in this case, the bicep tricep. So front delt might help out with biceps, maybe lats helps out with triceps. So I find, guys, if you go to like a moderate, it's obviously slightly heavier weight, but you control the motion and make sure your elbows are completely locked in and the muscle you're trying to work, again, biceps, triceps, are doing the work. That's where you're going to see the biggest benefit, opposed to just going super heavy and then getting a lot of compensations down the way. The sixth thing I did was I mixed in more cables, bends, and even machines. Reason being, guys, cables, bends, and machines, typically speaking, are a lot less taxing on your elbows, because in a bicep curl, like let's say you're using a dumbbell, peak tension is basically right when you're at 9 degrees. And if you're curling a lot of, let's say, 35, 40 pound dumbbells nonstop, that is a shitload of tension on your elbows. And over time, that can kind of lead to a bit of a breakdown, or maybe like a golfer's elbow issue, which we want to avoid. And again, it goes back to the recovery aspect. This is why I think cables, especially, are a game changer in terms of growing your arms. I could do heavy cables, no problem at all, and feel fantastic. But if I just like trash myself with like dumbbells and even barbells, I want people again to recover from my workouts. And at the same time, I'm just taking a beating on my elbows. So if you guys are going to add more volume and add more intensity, which we talked about, make sure you are mixing in a lot of bends, cables, and even machines. Because if you're just doing dumbbells and barbells, that's a one-way ticket to see your chiro with a golfer's elbow issue. The seventh thing I did, and I didn't necessarily do this like during the last month or two or so, this is I did before, but I still want to share it with you, is I hit different angles of my arms. So what I mean by that, and I'll keep it super simple for you, and I'll give you a couple examples. Biceps, I'm sure you guys know, palms up grip, a little more supinated, right? For the main bicep, and then hammer curl grip, a little more of the brachialis for the width there. And then I would kind of change it to like a preacher curl machine, little length of position machine, just so we can kind of change things up in terms of getting into stretch position, short position, and then obviously different angles of the arms, or triceps, of course. I could do like a rope tricep push down right here, and that can go more overhead because the long head of the tricep actually attaches on the scap, where the lateral part, the medial part actually don't. So that's why, guys, it is important to hit different angles if you do want to maximize your tricep and your bicep results. And the very last thing that I did, and this is probably the most important thing, was I listened to my body. Some Saturdays, like when I did my extra arm days, I was super sore, and I would actually listen to my body and not do my extra arm volume on those days. And if I continue to push through, number one, I would just lead to more tendon issues, which I talked about. And number two, I'm probably just doing more harm than good, because the last time I did arms was on the Thursday. And if I'm training this Saturday and I don't feel recovered, you're basically just going to kind of ruin Thursday's arm volume that we did, and it's going to kind of carry over to the following week. So if you guys are feeling tired, if you're feeling beat up, don't add just extra volume and add extra intensity. Listen to your body, because sometimes you might have to, skip that arm day altogether, or just kind of scale down intensity when appropriate. If you guys found this helpful, and I'm definitely not looking to be the biggest guy ever, so you might be thinking like, why am I listening to this guy who has like, decent arms, but not like crazy jacked arms? I want abs, guys. I want arms. I don't want to be that guy who's 200 pounds. I'm not that tall. 200 pounds who's like super jacked with a bit of a barrel. I want to kind of keep big arms relative to abs. So that's just a bit of a context for you there. But if you enjoyed watching, please like and subscribe. It would help us a lot. And we appreciate you watching to the end. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk soon.